OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Going to start this morning with the Irish Independent sports section. They should hang their heads in shame. That's the story that we have about Damien Duff. Duffer slams GAA's effing dinosaurs over approach to Miller fundraiser. AsIam.ie is the autism charity that he's raising funds for with the Keepy Uppy challenge. McStay facing potential 3-month ban for clash with linesmen. There's been an outpouring of support for Kevin McStay in the aftermath of what he did, and it's understandable, but it is in stark relief to what happened to Diarmuid Connolly. And so I keep bringing up the Connolly thing because there's complete double standards when Diarmuid Connolly does something and when anybody else does stuff. And I'm just interested in why that happens to be the case. It's not right, and it doesn't make any sense. And ultimately, it's really self-defeating. We've ended up without having Diarmuid Connolly playing football because... so I watched the news report again this morning of the Connolly incident against Carlo, and there's a push on the linesman, and he wags his finger in his face, and then he walks on. And in real time, it's like push, walk on, push. It's like that. But when you slow it down, it's like the Zapruder film. Slow mo. Oh, there's still... He had him like for ages, but actually it's a split second. And an entire GAA career, that's like the sliding doors moment right there for Connolly. And with this, it's like, look, there's a madness. He's a good guy. And I understand all that, but like, why did the Connolly witch hunt happen the way it happened?
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's a complete double standard. I know this isn't completely relevant to how the GAA will make decisions, but ultimately, who keeps their hand on the official for longer? Is it Kevin McStay or is it Diarmuid Connolly? Who actually is more intimidating towards the official, Kevin McStay or Diarmuid Connolly? And it's McStay in both situations. There's no question about that. But McStay is viewed as a nicer character within GAA circles, and therefore, this isn't even a witch hunt. This is a support campaign for Kevin McStay. This has been a monumental shifting of the goalposts to talk about poor officiating in the GAA, which is a problem in itself. But this is not the conversation that was happening around Diarmuid Connolly. We were not having the conversation around Diarmuid Connolly saying, well, that sideline official was very arrogant. Officials in the GAA need to up their game now and get their head out of their hole and, start listening to managers and listening to players. Nobody was having that conversation around Diarmuid Connolly. And if you look back, seem to be having this conversation now.
If you look back, there are 3 Carlo lads who have Connolly. 3 of them are swarming around him while he's off the field of play. So whereas McStay, there's been 2 decisions that have gone against him. Fair enough. Decisions go against you, and it's up to you to respond whatever way you want to choose. But Connolly is physically being manhandled, and I think this is actually, players are responding to that. Daniel Flynn responded to it, and we're going to see it again. Clifford got booked the other day, right? After one of the Monaghan players basically had him in a chokehold.
Yeah.
And then he grabs your man's jersey back, to get out of it. Why would Clifford be instigating crap against a Monaghan cornerback? They both get the same booking. It's the same outcome, even though one of these 2 players instigates what happens. It's madness.
Yeah, there is.
And so of course the players are going to get pissed off.
There's a huge wind-up culture in the GAA. That is another conversation. It's not just being wound up from an official's point of view, which McStay clearly was in his defence. But there's a huge wind-up culture going on from opposition players. It's not about being cynical or holding back the jersey or tripping them up or kind of giving them a small little dig behind the referee's back. There is a psychological element to all of this where it's if you do this enough times, you're going to poke the bear, he's going to lash out, you go down, and that guy's off at the very best circumstance. That's probably what they were trying to do to David Clifford. That's what they did to Daniel Flynn. It's what those Carlo players were probably trying to do to Diarmuid Connolly.
I think
it's
they
open
said
season.
It's
just an acceptance, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And we got to call bullshit on that, because otherwise it's going to go too far. GAA to meet over hosting Miller match. This is the Times Ireland edition. So looks like a meeting will actually happen. United will only sell Martial to foreign club. This is Anthony Martial, we think you might be quite good. We just don't know how to use you properly, and we definitely don't want you coming back to haunt us. So you can join somebody outside of England.
Somebody outside of the Champions League would be perfect. Go to little old Arsenal there, Anthony Martial is what I say. Go and join that minnow of a club in the Premier League, and you'll definitely won't come back to haunt Manchester United. That's what I suggest they do. Just stay away from the Champions League clubs.
Dave Albert was working with Francesco Molinari, I didn't know that. He's
That's really upturning a psychological prowess, is it?
there you go. But that's all bullshit apparently. All psychology is bullshit, because if you don't understand it, you think it's weird and anachronistic and it can't work. But he just won the British Open, so the Tour de France obviously is also making a lot of the newspapers. Dave Brailsford had pretty interesting comments yesterday about how French culture is just not good at understanding winners. What was exactly his point?
Well, he was actually have the quotes here. He was saying that it's interesting. We raced in Italy and Chris's case was open when we were at the Tour of Italy, and the Italians were fantastic, to be fair to them. The Spanish, fantastic. It just seems to be a French thing. It's like a French cultural thing, really, isn't it? That's it. I'm not sure that they would have liked their football players spat at it in Russia. I'm sure that there would have been a word or two about that. But it's okay to spit on us and our staff. So Dave Brailsford making the point here that the reason French fans hate Team Sky is because they're not French. And are Team Sky the only non-French team at the Tour de France? No, they're not. So it's a weird coincidence that they hate all non-French teams, but all their vitriol has landed in the face of Team Sky and their riders. Just pure coincidence. I can't imagine why. It's despicable that they would hate all non-French people.
The Racing Post this morning is Kavanagh hails groundbreaking lifetime bans for horses who have doped. This is a quantum leap forward for anti-doping. A new anti-doping policy that will trigger lifetime bans for horses who test positive for substances such as anabolic steroids has been hailed as groundbreaking and unprecedented by HRI Chief Executive Brian Kavanagh. On to the Irish Times sports section this morning. Jim McGuinness is the lead here. Rivals must play the patience game better if they want to beat the Dubs. And just an interesting point from the photograph here. So this is Healy Park in Omagh, and this is the last minute free that Ronan O'Neill misses. Not last minute, but late free that would have made it a single point game against Dublin. I just wanted to point out here, Palestinian flag, Palestinian flag. It seems that in the 6 counties, the Palestinian flags are being let in / actively encouraged in GAA matches, because you remember when Fermanagh won, there was a pitch invasion. There was loads of Palestinian flags on the field that day. It's just in Navan that you get arrested if you...
In their own little jurisdiction.
If you show up with... yeah. I don't know. I wonder... I haven't seen any in Croker. I haven't seen any at any of the other games.
I have seen them in Croker, yeah.
Okay, so.
And to be fair, it is the Dublin fans that are doing that. So, like, I'm kind of like, fair play to them. Bring them up to Omagh. The Dublin fans showing some political activism, which is great. It's obviously the Tyrone fans as well. They were united in Healy Park on Saturday with their Palestinian flags, and yeah, very noticeable. I think it's just the sheer size of Omagh as well, where the Dublin fans were kind of a bit more compressed, whereas in the Hill you might have one scattered around near the Nally and all that.
Okay. You read this piece?
Which one?
Jim
McGuinness, sorry, yeah. The piece you're literally just talking about. Yeah, so there's a couple of interesting things in it. One of the elements is Jim McGuinness comes up with a solution to beating this current iteration of Dublin. And he says, keep 10 men behind the ball and then use your remaining 4 or 5 players to chase the Dublin man in possession, to get around what he refers to the no man's land, which is between the 45 and 65 metre line. And obviously, when the Dubs are passing the ball around, it can be very, very frustrating. But the problem is, it's so slow that the opposition starts to think to themselves, well, right, we need to get everybody behind the ball. And they're set, they feel like they're in a sturdy position. And what happens then, there's one incisive move and you're finished. What actually happens is he feels 10 men is enough to hold that sturdy position, and the other 4 or 5 just go after and chase the ball, and you can rotate those personnel to save fitness throughout the match. He does also make the point that this Dublin team is nowhere near as gung-ho as 2013, and he's right. And I was wondering, actually, just watching that game on Saturday, like, what do the players think of that when they're hand-passing the ball around? Now, it's very effective, and I say fair play to them, because, you know, it's up to other teams to come after them when you're in a winning position. But what would Diarmuid Connolly think of that if he was playing in that team? Would he be content to kind of slot in and just use the fist and not be, I'm not going to say not be allowed to kick past the ball, but certainly get far less opportunities to kick past the ball, because obviously the potential that he's got in his feet is unbelievable. He was arguably the best kick passer of the ball in the championship when he was here. And I do wonder... Didn't
he shoot from a sideline with like a minute into stoppage time, 3 or 4 minutes, and
when they were up by like 1 point or something?
Yeah, and Killian O'Connor missed the free to equalise.
Yeah, I was like, fair play to you, Diarmuid.
Yeah, I know, it was like all guts, no glory. It was exactly what you want in Gaelic football.
It was just like Japan did to Belgium in the World Cup, and then they conceded and got knocked out of the World Cup. But sometimes that reaps reward. So yeah, it's an interesting one if you're up against Dublin at any point soon. Play 10 men behind the ball and use your other 4 or 5 players to actually chase down the man.
Great piece from Mike Quirk on Tuesday, as it is every Tuesday in the Examiner. He's just saying that Kerry need to make a few more changes still if they're going to actually beat Kildare and go ahead and make it through to the All-Ireland semi-finals. Cork need to be at the top table every time an All-Ireland is given out. The Myler mantra. An interview with John Myler ahead of their game this weekend. 120,000 people expected at Croker over the course of the 2 All-Ireland hurling semi-finals this weekend.
Yeah, also I think just looking at Cork hurling, I know it's kind of a bit of a tangent, but I think Pat Ryan is going to be announced as Waterford boss in the coming days to succeed Derek McGrath. He would have worked under Kieran Kingston at Cork over the last couple of years, so it's a bit of a left field selection, but somebody who's seen a county kind of come from the doldrums and actually succeed, as Cork obviously did last summer, and now John Myler is continuing on the fantastic work. And like, there doesn't seem to be a whole pile of fanfare around the hurling semi-finals just yet because of the football dominance over the last 2 weeks. That's going to change over the next couple of days, and expecting 70,000 for that game on Saturday, so that is a huge turnout. And it's just, I guess, the sheer population of Cork and Limerick, you know, and the rarity of Limerick being in real contention to win an All-Ireland title. Yeah,
hopefully everybody shows up for that. News too that Shane Lowry's putting his brother Alan on his bag for the next 4 weeks, and the Indo have it that the Mayo County Board chairman believes that Stephen Rochford will be continuing on. There's no guarantee, but there's rumours coming out that Rochford's going to replace his backroom team. County Board chairman is speculating on that speculation, suggesting that would suggest that Rochford is planning for next year, but he hasn't heard officially. But he did see him at the under-20 semi-final, and so sure, like, obviously he's going to be the Mayo manager next year if he showed up to that game. So
well, yeah, he said
pick up the phone and ring him.
He said he was at the under-20s game, and he said there might be more than one reason for the fact that he was at the under-20s game, or maybe not. Maybe he's just a Mayo man who was following his team in an All-Ireland semi-final.
And one last one for you from me. The Irish News is news on the Down football job. Plenty of interest in the Down job, says Rooney. They're in no rush, obviously, to appoint anybody. Suggestions that Stephen Poacher might be in the running for that. Conor Deegan, obviously, as well. And McCarran's season may be at an end. That's Colin McCarran, out from the Dublin game and may now well be out for the rest of the season as well. Let's move on to the tabloids.
Yeah, let's look at the back page of the Herald this morning. It is O'Leary dubs fear. Legend urges Sky Blues to finish off teams and stop fluting around, he says. And you've also got Duff slams rubbish call by GAA.
I wish there was like some kind of camera on the old GAA legends whenever Dublin start passing the ball back. If you could just kind of cut to a green room where like you have legends of the 60s, 70s and 80s and maybe just into the start of the 90s, and just see the exasperation as Dublin passed the ball back and forth like Barcelona, the tiki-taka.
Yeah, well,
just to imagine how angry they were. Like, stop floating around!
Leave it in long. But sure, Leave It In Long has got a long lease of life now as well, or a new lease of life, really. You know, like, do you actually dislike what they're doing, or is there kind of an element of saying, you know what, I admire their ballsiness because of things like this, because of people, the ultimate criticism that is going to come for that?
Sure, Monaghan tried to do exactly the same thing and they couldn't do it. So, like, it's not like this is
simple.
Exactly. It's like a very difficult skill executed at an unbelievably high level by one of the greatest teams of all time, and you're like, nah, this is not good for me.
Yeah, you also need an incredibly high level of fitness to actually be able to execute that. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like, if they're chasing a game, obviously they're not going to do it, but they're dominant in so many games. Jim Gavin has literally looked at the games and is like, we've trailed in like 2 games at half-time ever, so we need a second half plan to actually kind of counteract this idea that, you know, we need to constantly be gung-ho and actually win these games. So it's up to everybody else to chase them, is my stance on this, despite the fact that, like, it's not particularly enjoying on a personal level, but I don't care. It's like, you do what you got to do to win. If it was my county doing it, I'd be like, fair play to you.
And Tyrone went for it.
Yeah.
The most bizarre thing I thought in the aftermath of that game was Mickey Hart saying, well, you're not going to defend a 5 or 6 point deficit. It's like, well, maybe if you played like that from the start, lads.
Yeah.
Like, the game has changed to the point where going for it gets rewarded.
Yeah. Without question, yeah, for sure. On the back page of the Irish Daily Star, it's big news for Aston Villa. Villain Park, handball Henry to lead Premier League drive. You can't refer to Thierry Henry without referring to the handball, is what it says. Just before we come back to that, just to mention some of the other stories here. Kariusai's red exit after another error, so he's made another error, it seems, in pre-season. I was against Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, it wasn't even that bad.
Sunday. Ozil's row in Germany hots up. Things are getting very nasty now in the row between Mesut Ozil and the DFB. Ozil, of course, is retired from international football at the age of 29. Rivals won't get Martial and McStay's in hot water completing the back page here. Plenty of stories here on the back page, but Villain Park is the big one. Thierry Henry going into Aston Villa. New owners there. Steve Bruce is still the manager.
I didn't even know the story about the new owners. It happened.
Yeah, one of them is like a co-owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. So maybe he kind of looks across the Atlantic and is like, look at that trendy young Frenchman. Let's get him into our trendy young club. And without the realisation that there isn't a whole pile of pedigree when it comes to Thierry Henry here. Like, I mean, let's not forget the criticism that was surrounding Thierry Henry before the World Cup. Now, of course, Belgium had a very good World Cup, so maybe it's changed. But how much of that was down to Thierry Henry? Like Christophe Terreur saying that he's the last one to arrive at training and the first one to leave. Maybe he's just highly productive.
Yeah, I know. I mean, maybe he's going to change the culture, like short, sharp, intense training, and everybody ends up being as good a footballer as Thierry Henry. Happy days.
Maybe.
What could possibly go wrong here?
I'd love to be wrong on this, but I can't see Thierry Henry becoming one of the greatest managers.
But at least he decided to give up the really cushy, unbelievably lucrative gig at Sky to take this risk. I think he deserves a little bit of credit for that, right?
Sure. No, he does. Like, he's really thrown that one away. But obviously, this isn't confirmed just yet. It does seem to be an exclusive from the Star. Like, what are you thinking if you're Steve Bruce and you wake up this morning and you're like,
thinking, I still have a job here. What's going on? I mean, maybe Steve Bruce could be his assistant.
Wow. That would be, or Henry could be his assistant. I mean, that would be one hell of a dynamic.
Not going to happen.
It's all Thierry. Today his work involves, listen, Steve, I'm going to do what I want to do. And also it would be a situation where an assistant would get paid more than the actual manager, you would imagine. So yeah, it's interesting times at Villa Park for sure. The Mesut Ozil story is really dominating some of the back pages. Mesh Shit Ozil says the Sun here, and £70 million. Like the Ozil
is Mesh It, is that like, is it a German translation?
Well, no, Uli Hoeneß said he was
Scheisse?
Well, maybe, yeah.
Is it?
No, Uli Hoeneß said he was shit for years, so they tried to get that in as a pun, which is kind of, this situation is getting like a situation of bullying, but it's all taking place on a very, very public international level, where it's like a notable German person piles in on Mesut Ozil. In the next day's news cycle, mostly in somewhere like Bild, another German legend will pile in on Mesut Ozil, and like you've got to feel sorry for the guy. Like it's a really horrible situation he's been put into. Like there's been calls for the DFB chief to step down and all that sort of stuff, because you know it's almost like when you look at the political scenario that's involved here and some of the politicians that have piled in, it's like open season for the far right in Germany right now, and they're just absolutely rubbing their hands at the potential of a scapegoat in the guise of somebody with Turkish heritage.
Yeah.
So it's not a pleasant story. It's gonna rumble on, you'd imagine. I wouldn't be surprised to see Germans actually waking up to what's going on here, and that Ozil actually comes back in a couple of years if they just clear out some of the top brass. But I don't know. Like every chance he goes and has the season of his life now.
I don't know. He hasn't been particularly effective, I don't think, over the last couple of years. Like, when was Ozil at his best? Was it that World Cup that they won? Was he genuinely effective in that World Cup?
2010, he was probably at his best. You know, that's the one that gets him signed for Real Madrid.
It's a long time ago now, isn't it?
It is a long time ago. There's no question about that. Like he is, yeah. Like you can't blame all of this on Ozil's poor performances. And like Hoeneß was saying that when Bayern faced Arsenal, they were just actually targeting Ozil as their weak link, as a man you could bypass quite easily, you could push around quite easily. So maybe it is like you obviously can't blame it all on that, but it has had an effect for sure. And I think the whole idea of racism that he's kind of thrown up here is legit. It is the real reason why he has walked away from the squad.
Yeah.
It's on the back page here. It's the lead as well on the back page of the Mirror. Ozil's been rubbish for years. That's Hoeneß's quote as well. He hits back at Arsenal star on racism row that has caused uproar in German football.
The thing is that it's possibly true that you can watch the German football team over the last number of years and think, well, he's been rubbish. And it's also possibly true that he is the victim of racism in this circumstance. It's like, but Hoeneß piling in now is actually reaffirming the whole notion that there's a motivation behind this, which isn't just about football. Because did Illy Hona say this in advance of the World Cup? Has he been saying it for years?
But,
or is
like
he just opportunistically now jumping on this to pile in?
Yeah, part of me does agree. It's like the reason why he's been rubbish has been himself. The reason why he's been the most rubbish, maybe because of race. The back page of The Guardian then is winning something. It is just the next step. Jurgen Klopp and why expectations are greater for Liverpool now. And you've also got Team Sky here, Sean Ingle and Carcassonne saying, we get on for now anyway. Thomas insists Team Sky tour rivals are chasing the same goal. And on the front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section, it's Froome's promise. I'm ready to help teammate Thomas a title, says Sky star. They leave out the phrase true gritted teeth there. But I'm sure he was delighted, you know, when he was quizzed about that, to say, I'm a good old mate, Geraint, I'll help him through thick and through thin.
It's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens over the next couple of days. Like, this is one of these, they happen rare enough, really. Like, but when they do happen, they tend to be unbelievably famous and iconic moments where teammate A and teammate B are actually going for it. I don't know if you've seen Slaying the Badger, the 30 for 30 about Bernard Hinault and Greg LeMond. They're on the same team, and Hinault basically promises LeMond, you help me this year and I'll let you win next year. And Hinault then just completely blanks the promise that he made to LeMond. And what, you promised you're gonna... And so they end up having to go at each other.
Stephen Roach involved in a fairly similar situation?
Roberto Vicentini in the Giro d'Italia in 1987. So he's not the team leader of the Italian team in the Italian race, but finds himself in the race leader's pink jersey and gets all sorts of abuse from the Italian crowd. So like, Italian crowds are very nasty towards people in the right circumstances. Certainly they were back in the 1980s. And he just balls it out and says, screw you, Italy. I'm going to win your race. I'm going to take your pink jersey and I'm going to crush Roberto Vicentini, who wasn't really heard of after that. Or certainly I don't think competed at that level again.
Yeah, okay.
Now hang on, well, no, I don't think so.
He didn't like win a Triple Crown or anything after, is what you're going to now discover.
Well, maybe he competed in the Giro again after that. But anyway, they're brilliant because the rawness between two teammates who are well matched and have access to the same facilities means that it's a relatively level playing field. The
same instructions, they know exactly, like,
they can hear the race radio from each other.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think...
And I suppose you can probably key the leader and go, okay, go now, Chris, this is your moment.
I don't think Froome is winning this thing. Like, he would have to do something extraordinarily different to Geraint Thomas. And how can two teammates diverge in such a manner, particularly post-Alps?
Yeah.
Like, it will have to take some sort of extraordinary ride from a competitor who's not wearing Sky Ocean Rescue on their singlet to actually win this thing. But that's not going to happen either. It's Geraint Thomas's to lose, big time.